Welcome to another deep dive today. And
Oh yeah, looking forward to this one.
yeah, this one's interesting. You shared some excerpts with me from Ising Can's unpublished manuscript.
Okay.
And it's called Klassik Gitarre. Eine Liebesgeschichte.
Yeah.
And you know, he's a talented classical guitarist.
Work, yeah.
He's got a dedicated online following. I understand he's known for these romantic compositions.
Yeah.
But with this manuscript, you know, it's a very personal story.
Right.
It's almost like a love story with the guitar.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's at a crossroads.
Yeah.
You know, he's wrestling with whether or not to let this reach a wider audience.
Right.
And I guess maybe even other classical guitarists.
That's a good question. Yeah, because
Yeah, what do you think?
I mean, what strikes me is that he's not just telling his life story, right? It's not just a memoir or an autobiography.
Yeah.
He's really grappling with some big questions about music and his own philosophy of interpretation.
Yeah.
It's like we're getting this privileged look inside the mind of an artist.
Yeah.
Really wrestling with these age-old questions of technique and expression and
Yeah. And he does paint such vivid pictures with his words right from the start.
right.
I mean, he describes his childhood fascination with his grandfather's guitar,
Okay.
like the scent of the wood, the way it gleamed in the lamplight. I mean,
It's evocative, right?
it really is. It's as he saw it as this almost mystical object
Yeah.
even before he could play.
And that's interesting because he wasn't even allowed to touch the instrument at first.
Right.
Only look at it, right? So there's this
Right.
yearning, there's this almost forbidden love that shapes those early experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that resonates with a lot of musicians, right? You know,
Yeah.
that and its initial awe and that longing to create sound.
And then when he finally gets to hold the guitar at 6 years old,
Oh,
he
wow.
describes it as a sensual, loving embrace.
Wow.
You know, you could just feel this passion
Yeah.
ignite there. But of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Right.
He had these tiny hands too small to properly reach the frets.
Yeah.
But, you know, fueled by his love for the stories the music evoked,
Right.
he persevered.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
talks about being transported to different worlds through the music,
Yeah.
connecting with the composers on this really personal level.
It's like he saw each piece as a window into a different soul.
Exactly.
You know, and I think this is where his journey takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
You know, he discovers this innate talent, this ease with which his hands kind of develop their own memory
Right. I just.
for the music.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to consciously think about each note. They just flow.
Mm-hmm.
But with that talent comes ambition.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say?
And his world starts to shift. you
Yeah.
know, from the pure joy of playing
Yeah.
to the pressure of performing,
Right.
right? You know, he gets this label of prodigy thrust upon him,
And that's.
which is a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged sword so many young musicians face, right?
Right.
Where those external expectations start to overshadow that internal passion.
And that tension is so palpable throughout the story.
Right.
You know, he's got this demanding teacher pushing him relentlessly.
wow.
And then there's this whole thing about a week of silence imposed by his family
Right.
because he refused to learn a difficult piece.
Wow.
So it's like the love for the music was being pitted against this pressure to perform.
Yeah. And what's important here is that he's not romanticizing the struggle.
Right.
He's really honest about the negative impacts of that ambition.
Right.
The emotional toll it took.
Yeah.
So it's not just a simple tale of triumph.
Right.
It's a nuanced exploration of the complexities of a musician's life.
And then, of course, he goes through this period of immense upheaval,
Right.
immigrating to Germany, facing bullying, cultural isolation.
Yeah.
And he turns away from classical guitar.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
He seeks solace in alcohol. He even joins a gang. And it's a stark reminder that musicians aren't immune to life's difficulties.
Of course not.
You know, their art might be an outlet,
Yeah.
but it doesn't shield them from pain.
And this seems like a real turning point for him, a
Yeah.
real questioning of his identity and where he fits in,
Right.
both as a musician and as a person.
And he's got this amusing anecdote
Okay.
about what he calls the Lagerfeuer Busch trauma.
Okay.
And
I don't know what that means.
basically, he would bring his classical guitar to these gatherings
Okay.
and impress the girls with his playing,
Yeah.
only to find himself alone
Oh, no.
as they all disappeared into the bushes with his less musically inclined friends.
That's funny.
It is funny,
Why
but
not?
there's a palpable frustration underneath the humor.
There is.
And speaks to this disconnect between classical guitar
Right.
and popular culture.
Yeah, especially during adolescence, right?
Right.
He's trying to find his own musical voice.
Right.
Amidst all these expectations and desires of those around him. And that's something I think a lot of listeners can relate to.
Right.
Feeling that pressure to conform.
Right. But this period of turmoil wasn't the end of his musical journey.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And it eventually leads him back to the guitar.
Okay.
But with a new perspective.
Right.
He rekindles his passion. He finds a new mentor.
Yeah.
He dives into intense training. He's really sharpening his technique with this renewed purpose.
Okay.
And he even sets his sights on the conservatory.
Oh, wow.
But this is where he encounters those pitfalls of the system.
Oh, yeah.
Right. He's told he needs to learn a second instrument to gain entry.
That's common. Yeah.
Which is something he finds incredibly difficult.
Well, sure.
Because he doesn't have that inherent passion that he has for the guitar.
Right. It raises the question, can musicality really be forced?
Right.
Or does it have to come from within?
And he ends up choosing the recorder.
Oh, the recorder.
Which he loathes.
Oh, no.
He describes it as wobbling between his hands. And the constant drool inside, reminding him of spittoons in old Western saloons.
That's a vivid image.
It is a vivid image, and the humor's undeniable.
Right.
But it masks this deeper frustration with the rigidity of the system.
Yeah, he's struggling to reconcile his love for this music with the expectations of those around him.
And ultimately, he fails the entrance exam.
Oh, no.
And the recorder meets a rather dramatic end.
Yeah, okay.
Smashed to pieces on the sidewalk outside the conservatory.
That's a statement.
It is a statement.
Yeah.
And this marks the end of his formal music education.
Wow.
A bitter disappointment for someone who had once dreamed of a life dedicated to the classical guitar.
But it's not the end of his journey, is it?
No, it's not.
In fact, this might be the catalyst for him to really forge his own path.
Right.
Free from those constraints of formal training.
Right.
He's free to explore, you know, different genres, different approaches to music making. And this is where his story and his reflections on music take a really fascinating turn. And what we see next is him kind of wrestling with this new adversary, stage fright.
Oh, wow.
And it gets so bad that he starts exploring all these other genres like rock and pop, even jazz.
Oh, interesting.
Hoping to find a way to kind of express himself musically without this fear of performance.
It's interesting because he initially describes this fascination with jazz improvisation.
Right.
The allure of composing in real time.
Yeah.
But he quickly realizes that even jazz, for all of its spontaneity, still relies on this foundation of scales and rules.
Yeah, he's looking for something beyond that.
Right.
It's like he wants to find this musical space where precision and spontaneity can coexist. Right. Where he can kind of push beyond the confines of what's been done before.
Right. And he really seems to admire those jazz musicians who can bend those rules.
Yeah.
You know, create these unexpected dissonances.
Right, and resolve them in ways that are surprising and delightful.
Right. He's drawn to that fearlessness.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he also delves into the joy of collaborative playing in jazz.
Right.
This sense of community that you don't always find in classical guitar.
Yeah, you're often alone as a classical guitarist.
Right. He compares it to witnessing life stories unfold.
I like that. It's the shared experience of creativity and improvisation.
Right. And it seems like a real shift for him.
It is.
Away from focusing on individual achievement.
Exactly.
You know, proving his talent.
Right.
And now he's discovering the value of connection.
Yeah, and that really ties in with his later thoughts on interpretation.
Okay.
Where he talks about this importance of creating a unified and meaningful experience for the listener, rather than just showcasing technical prowess.
But even in this world of jazz, he can't escape those pressures of performance.
No.
He describes this disastrous final concert.
Oh.
Plagued by stage fright, technical difficulties, and a less than receptive punk audience.
Oh, no.
And he vows never to perform again.
Oh, gosh.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, yeah. And it really kind of reinforces all of his anxieties about performance.
But there's an interesting twist.
Okay.
He later receives praise for that very concert.
Oh, wow.
It highlights this disconnect between public perception and the performer's inner experience.
Oh, it's so true.
Right? We judge art based on these external factors.
Right. We have no idea what's going on beneath the surface.
Completely oblivious to the emotional turmoil that might be happening.
Absolutely.
So at 24, he quits performing, puts the guitar away.
Okay.
Tries to move on with his life.
Okay.
But as he admits, that ambition, that drive to achieve it, doesn't just vanish.
No, it doesn't.
It finds other outlets.
Right.
often with negative consequences.
This is something that I think a lot of people can relate to,
Right.
regardless of their profession.
Even when we try to suppress it,
Right.
it can manifest in other areas, driving us to seek validation and success.
Exactly. Sometimes at the expense of our well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes through this period of personal challenges,
Okay.
including anxiety and depression.
I see.
And it's clear he's struggling to find peace and fulfillment outside of music,
Yeah.
yet terrified to return to it.
Wow.
And this is where his story takes an unexpected turn.
Okay.
He rediscovers music through YouTube,
How interesting.
but it's not the virtuosos that capture his attention.
Okay.
It's these amateur videos, the players of all skill levels,
I see.
from beginners to those who've been playing for years.
Okay.
And it's their genuine joy that strikes him.
I love that.
He contrasts their enthusiasm with his own judgmental perspective.
Right.
And realizes that he's lost sight of this simple pleasure of playing.
Yeah, it's a real moment of self-reflection.
It is.
Isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And he decides to buy himself this high-quality master guitar.
Oh, wow.
It's like a symbol of this renewed commitment.
Okay.
But then in a cruel twist of fate,
What happens?
he breaks his hand shortly after.
Oh, no.
And it forces him to confront his relationship with the instrument yet again.
It's like life is presenting him with this challenge.
Right.
Right, pushing him to find a deeper meaning in his music
Yeah.
beyond just the desire for recognition or achievement.
And he becomes fixated on achieving a pure, clean tone,
Okay.
almost to the point of obsession.
I see.
He describes spending hours trying to eliminate any hint of string noise, only to realize that this pursuit of an idealized sound was robbing him of the music's essence.
Yeah, it's a liberating discovery.
It is.
Isn't it?
He's moving away from these external standards of excellence
Exactly.
and towards this internal sense of satisfaction.
Yeah, and it's about embracing the unique character of each note,
Right.
the imperfections and nuances that give the music life.
And there's this amusing anecdote
Okay.
about him seeking advice from his old, very strict teacher.
Oh,
And he's complaining about his tone,
yeah.
and the teacher essentially dismisses his concerns.
That's funny.
It is funny, and I think it underscores the importance of trusting our instincts and not getting bogged down in technical minutia.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Right.
Between technical proficiency and artistic expression.
Right. And his journey reflects this constant push and pull
Right.
between those two elements.
Exactly.
And this is where his manuscript really starts to delve into the complexities of interpretation.
Okay.
And he begins to question these traditional approaches that rely solely on historical context or composer intent.
Right.
And he proposes this more fluid understanding of musical expression,
I see.
one that allows for personal connection and exploration.
This is where his ideas get really interesting.
Yeah.
He's challenging the notion that there's only one right way to interpret a piece of music.
Right.
Right. He's advocating for a more intuitive and responsive approach,
Right.
acknowledging the emotional and experiential dimensions of music making.
And he introduces this concept of consistency in interpretation,
Okay.
where every note relates to the whole,
I like that.
creating a unified and meaningful experience for the listener.
right.
And he believes that this consistency can't be achieved through purely analytical means.
Right.
It emerges organically
Exactly.
through dedicated practice and deep immersion in the music.
This is a crucial insight for any musician or
Right.
for any artist for that matter.
Right.
It's about trusting the process, right?
course.
Allowing the work to unfold organically rather than forcing it into some predetermined mold.
And he draws inspiration from this other guitarist who spent an entire day mastering a simple arpeggio exercise.
Wow.
And he realized that for this guitarist, the practice itself was a form of musical expression.
Right.
And it challenges this idea that practice is merely a means to an end.
Right.
It reframes it as an integral part of the creative process, a source of joy and discovery in its own right.
Yeah, I love that.
And he recounts this experience playing El Marabino,
Okay.
a fast-paced, energetic piece.
Uh-huh.
And he describes being overwhelmed by the audience's energy
Okay.
and playing flawlessly,
Right.
even though he exceeded his intended tempo. It seems paradoxical that this loss of control actually led to a heightened sense of connection and freedom.
It's a fascinating example of how surrendering to the moment
Right.
can sometimes result in the most powerful performance.
Right.
And it seems like he's suggesting that we need to let go of the need to control every aspect of our art
Right.
and allow for the unpredictable, the vulnerable, the truly captivating to emerge.
Right. Yeah, it does make you wonder if that sense of letting go is really essential for truly captivating music.
Well,
How do we reconcile that with this idea of professionalism?
right.
Is it all about flawless execution, or is there room for those raw, spontaneous moments?
It's something that he really grapples with throughout the manuscript.
Yeah.
He uses this really striking analogy.
Okay.
He compares a musician striving for absolute control to a butterfly pinned to a board.
Oh, wow.
You have this beautiful living thing stifled by this desire for perfect stillness.
Right.
And it's like he's arguing that we need to release our grip on this need to control every little detail
Yeah.
and allow for these unexpected, vulnerable moments that make music truly breathe.
But isn't there a risk of going too far in that direction?
Sure.
Sacrificing precision for the sake of spontaneity?
Yeah.
Couldn't that lead to a performance that's messy or unfocused?
That's a valid concern.
Right.
But I think what he's advocating for is this delicate balance.
Okay.
It's not about abandoning technique or structure altogether.
Right.
It's about recognizing that there's this deeper level of artistry
Yeah.
that comes from surrendering to the moment, from allowing the music to flow through you
Right.
in a way that's both precise and emotionally resonant.
It makes me think about how we often focus on the technical aspects of music.
Right?
The mechanics of playing, and
Wow.
sometimes lose sight of that emotional core.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy trying to hit all the right notes that we forget to breathe life into the music.
Exactly.
And I think his manuscript is this powerful reminder of that.
Yeah.
He goes on to explore this myth of Narcissus, this tale of self-obsession and the inability to truly connect with others.
Yeah.
And he links this back to the world of music,
Yeah.
suggesting that some performers fall into this trap of seeking validation and admiration
Right.
rather than genuinely sharing their art.
It's a cautionary tale,
It is.
for sure.
Yeah.
It speaks to the dangers of ego-driven ambition.
Absolutely, where the pursuit of personal accolades kind of overshadows
Right.
that deeper purpose of connecting with an audience on an emotional level.
And it sounds like Isam has undergone a real transformation in his own relationship with praise and criticism.
Yeah, I think so.
He's moved away from that need for external validation
Right.
towards a genuine appreciation for the joy his music brings to others.
Yeah, he's reached a point where he understands that true artistry isn't about ego or accolades.
Right.
It's about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Letting go of control, offering your art as a gift to the world.
So coming back to his initial question,
Yeah.
should this book be published? Could it resonate with a wider audience, maybe even beyond classical guitarists?
Based on what we've talked about today,
Yeah.
I think there's a strong case for publication.
I think so too.
His writing is so personal and insightful.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technical aspects of playing.
Right.
It's about the human journey behind the music, the
Right.
struggles, the triumphs,
Yeah.
the constant search for meaning and connection.
It's a reminder that music is more than just notes on a page.
Exactly.
It's a reflection of our own experiences, our emotions,
Yeah.
our search for beauty in the world.
And whether you're a seasoned musician or someone who simply enjoys listening,
Right.
I think his reflections on passion, ambition, and the creative process are universally relatable.
Yeah. And he offers such a fresh perspective on what it means to be an artist.
He does.
And I think that could resonate with a wide range of readers.
I think so too.
And perhaps the true value of his work lies not in its potential for commercial success,
Right.
but in its ability to spark reflection and self-discovery.
It's about inviting us to question our own assumptions about music, about art, about life itself.
Absolutely. And that's a powerful legacy for any artist.
It is.
To leave behind a body of work that inspires others to think differently, to feel more deeply, to embrace the unpredictable beauty of the creative journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And so, as we conclude our deep dive into the world of Azim Khan and his unpublished love story with the classical guitar,
Yeah.
what resonates with you most about his perspective? How might you approach your own creative pursuits differently, embracing the vulnerability and the unpredictability that make art so captivating?